Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to my first ever FarmerCon presentation, and for virtual FarmerCon 2021. This year, I will be covering my three favorite Tarzan crossovers. Now, Tarzan has had a number of crossovers with various properties. He's both official and unofficial, and obviously, I'll be covering my three particular favorites here. Here, here. First up is Tarzan at the Earth's Core by none other than Edgar Rice Burroughs. This is a crossover between two of Burroughs' series, the Tarzan books, obviously, and also the Pellucidar series, beginning with At the Earth's Core, continuing on for several more novels. This is with Tarzan having an adventure in Pellucidar, and lots of great twists and turns along the way. Burroughs is, as I'm sure Philip would say, Farmer would agree. Ian actually did say so on more than one occasion. An author grossly underrated by modern literati, and he told great adventure stories. He was actually very good at characterization, I thought, and I personally think. And Tarzan has a richly developed character, and his world building skills are excellent, especially with not only with Pellucidar but the Mars series, the Castback trilogy, the Venus books, and bringing those elements together here, I feel that the book succeeds on a number of levels. Burroughs was no stranger to connecting his worlds together. Before our shared universes became as popular as they are now, with the likes of the Marvel Cinematic Universe and such. He frequently had references in one book to characters or elements from another. Like, for instance, this book one of the main characters in this book is Jason Gridley, who not only appears in the Pellucidar books, but also in the Mars books and the Venus books. So Burroughs was creating his own shared universe, Earth, and of course, I believe in the Moon Maid, there are references to Barsoom, and there are lots of other references like that along the way, and there are other little nods like that along the way, and this edition has a beautiful cover by the great Neil Adams, and comic artist extraordinaire. And something that's interesting, worth noting about this book from a Farmerian perspective, is that Farmer, in his seminal book Tarzan Alive, I proclaimed it completely fictional in relation to the real individual on whom Tarzan was based, but he nevertheless provided a date for it in his chronology of Tarzan's life anyways. And when Farmer also authorized British author J.T. Edson to use his well-known theories, particularly related to Tarzan, his Bunduki series and other works, and Edson had Tarzan family faking their deaths and relocating to Pellucidar in the 1970s, which Farmer never objected to, well, at least not openly. But it seems pretty clear to me that he didn't really have a problem with introducing in Pellucidar back into the Tarzan mythos, and even gave for Edson's works the stamp authenticity by establishing in one of his World of Tears novels, the Lava Light world, that Kikaha, Paul Janus Finnegan, one of the two main protagonists of that series, was related to Dusty Faw, the protagonist of one of Edson's Western series. I believe, and even I'm not alone on this, that at Pellucidar does exist within Israel, but that its true nature and origins are not necessarily what they may appear to be. And while I love Farmer's world building, I have to admit, there's a part of me that does love. There is a big part of me that does like to keep some of the more outlandish elements, even if the caveat the books are fictionalizations of real events, but this is a great book. Definitely the place to start if you're looking into Tarzan crossovers, and highly recommended. All right, continuing on the thread of Pellucidar crossovers, next I'm moving on to my good friend Winscott Eckert's novel, recent, as of late 2020 novel, old Tarzan Battle for Pellucidar, which is a excellent crossover story featuring Tarzan battling Nazis in Pellucidar. Which, how can you not love that concept? And it introduces some cool new characters like Suzanne Clayton, Aiden, and Korak and Miriam's daughter, and therefore Tarzan's granddaughter. And there is a significance to that name that farmer fans might recognize. The name Suzanne that farmer fans might recognize. I'm not going to say more than that. And, and this is a really rollicking adventure novel. Old Wynn gets Tarzan spot on, and he also introduces lots of little allusions to other works by Burroughs, like The Rider, Pirate Blood, the Castback books, the aforementioned Castback book act trilogy, and it's just an all around great read, extending Tarzan's life beyond what Burroughs wrote. It's also got allusions to a number of other official authorized Tarzan works that are not written by Burroughs, like Joe R. Lansdale's excellent story crossing over Tarzan with the Castback books, and he also reconciles some continuity conflicts between that story and like the Tarzan and comic strip stories that have him adventuring in Pellucidar, namely the destruction of the O220 airship and Lansdale's story, where he explains how it was rebuilt, which I loved. And there's some great new characters in it, like Jason Gridley and Jana's son, on the aforementioned Suzanne Clayton, who is a strong, powerful action heroine and very cool. Well, this is her right here, I believe. And once again, great cover. And it's a book where, if you're familiar with Burroughs' work, it enriches your experience, but it's not absolutely essential. Basically, everything you need to know is in there. And there's some great backup stories, or he's like continuing the Swords of Eternity super arc that's running through the new Edgar Rice Burroughs universe novels. And anyways, it's just a really excellent book. I'm not just saying that because I'm listening to the acknowledgments. But anyways, definitely a must read for all Burroughs fans and crossover fans and Tarzan fans. All right. The third and final novel I'm going to be covering is the one unofficial one, and not surprisingly, it's a Philip is a Farmer's novel. It's the Peerless Peer. Here, this is a story set during World War One, where Holmes and Watson team up with Lord Greystoke. He's only ever referred to as Lord Greystoke for copyright reasons, and to stop a German basilisk from being unleashed that could be turn the tide of the war, and in the process battling Holmes' old foe von Bork, from the German spy von Bork from his last bow. And this is a really fun novel. It's humorous in many ways, but it doesn't. Even though it pokes fun at the Holmes and Watson relationship and things like that, it never feels disrespectful as a lot of today's snarky fiction can. And basically there's so many moments here that are true to the core of all the characters involved. Like when Watson falls in love and the adventure takes him to Zuvendis, the hidden city from H. Rider Haggard's novel All in Quatermain, and Watson falls in love with the Queen of Zuvendis, Nyleptha, on first sight, and learning that she's of English descent. Yes, Tarzan helped her bring him back to England, and let me back up a bit. Holmes had basically extorted Tarzan into investigating his claim to be the real rightful Lord Greystoke, having taken over the title after his which he was actually legally entitled to after the death of his cousin, the seventh Duke, because he wanted to avoid the publicity he attended to a noble English peer being raised by apes resurfacing in England after all these years. So, when Watson tells Tarzan that he will waive his half of the fee if he will bring Lord Greystoke, rather, if he will bring Nyleptha back with it, help them bring Nyleptha back to England. And Tarzan, in a line that's so incredibly in character with how Burroughs wrote him, says, "I couldn't refuse a man who loves love more than he loves money, and you can keep the fee." Farmer gets Tarzan, and it's really great to see. And besides, not only are Tarzan, Lord Greystoke, and Holmes and Watson and Zuvendis in the book, but there are also a number of other cameos and references. Like, for instance, John Dixon Carr's detective Sir Henry Merivale and Gideon Fell both have cameos early in the book, and there are a couple of Allied aviators in there that should be very familiar to pulp fans, and there's also in the introduction a mention of the 15th Duke of Denver, who fans of Dorothy L. Sayers will know better as Lord Peter Wimsey. It's a fun novel. Some people have criticized the conclusion as being too outlandish, but I actually appreciate that Farmer is willing to go there. He was a very inventive guy who was not above eye and a trickster, and it's always fun to read from me. He is a big part of why he's my all-time favorite writer. Anyways, this is a really great book that if you're a Farmer fan, a fan of his well-known family tree, which of course connects Holmes and Tarzan, and many other adventure and pulp and adventure and mainstream literature heroes and villains into a single family tree. It's an essential read, and I have the Titan Books edition, and which came out in 20. Hold on, let me check this here. 2011. It's a great edition, and with excellent edition with a one edition with a wonderful a terrific afterword by the aforementioned Win Scott Eckert. So bravo, Win, and both on this and for your great work on Battle and Pellucidar, and of course so many other great books and stories. There are plenty of other cool Tarzan crossover to talk about, like the three storylines collected as Tarzan Le Monstre by consisting of three stories from Dark Horse Comics Tarzan series, which have the Phantom of the Opera, Mr. Hyde, and Frankenstein, which are all three very fun stories. Farmer wrote the foreword for the collected edition, and they're a lot of fun. Even overlooking the fact that chronologically the Phantom of the Opera takes place like about 30 years before Tarzan of the Apes, but still great fun. And there's also the wonderful old miniseries Batman Tarzan Claws of the Catwoman, which is beautifully illustrated, magnificent covers. The great thing about the art is it actually shows many of the scars Tarzan is described as having in Burroughs novels, which a lot of artists don't bother with, and so those two definitely would get honorary mentions, along with far more entertaining, very entertaining despite the oddball premise, as Tarzan versus Predator at the Year's Core, which again, the story set in Pellucidar, but actually Tarzan I think makes a certain amount of sense that they're both hunters and great hunters, and I think it works surprisingly well. Anyway, all these books are highly recommended, and you can probably find them at most good online bookstores, and probably some of them at the public library, or maybe through interlibrary loan. They're all very much worth pursuing for Burroughs fans and for crossover fans, and so I hope you enjoy them and as much as I did, and I hope everyone has a great FarmerCon, and that you all get to do it next year, whether online or in person. Hopefully better things to come in 2022. Thank you all. Goodbye.